Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're tackling a topic that has, it's fundamentally changed the way we all interact with the world. The big question is, can we truly trust AI in our daily lives? Because if you're navigating this landscape, you know that the conversations around AI, they just swing wildly between, utopian promises and, on the other hand, this kind of dystopian fear.
And that volatility is precisely what we want to study today. Our listeners are looking for fluency here, the ability to really discuss this topic with confidence, with nuance. So our mission, looking at the sources you've provided, it's not to issue some blanket yes or no verdict. We are analyzing the specific contexts to figure out the crucial distinctions, when, why, and how we should apply skepticism or reliance on these systems.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, before we can even judge trustworthiness, we all need to be on the same page. So let's establish a common language for AI in daily life. We're not talking about, science fiction here. We're talking about systems you interact with constantly, maybe without even realizing it.
Exactly. I mean, this includes the really subtle things, like the predictive text on your phone
Hmm.
or the recommendation algorithms that are deciding what video you see next. But it also goes bigger. It encompasses the more robust tools like smart home devices, navigation apps predicting your route, those sophisticated chatbots, and of course the generative AI models everyone's using to create text and images. They're just ubiquitous.
Okay, so when we talk about trusting them, what are we really evaluating? It can't just be, does it work?
No, it's much deeper. The sources laid out 5 critical pillars for evaluating trust in an AI system. And if you want to talk about this fluently, these are your benchmarks. First, you have reliability. Does it consistently do what you expect? Second is safety. Does it pose any kind of physical or, cyber threat? Third, and this is a big one, privacy. How much personal data is it collecting, and how is that data being secured?
And the final two, I'm guessing, are probably the most complicated ones.
They are, yeah. Fourth is transparency. Can we understand why the system made a particular decision? Exactly, the how. If the mechanism is opaque, if it's a black box, trust just automatically goes down. And fifth, bias. Is the system, maybe unintentionally, discriminating or reinforcing societal prejudices? All because of the data it was trained on. If any of those 5 pillars are shaky, our reliance on it needs to be, well, conditional.
Okay, let's unpack that framework. Let's start with the strong case for trusting AI. I mean, why have these systems become so indispensable so fast? The argument almost always starts with convenience and efficiency.
And it's undeniable. I mean, take the classic example, logistics. If you're driving, Google Maps isn't just a static map. It's analyzing huge real-time data sets from phones, from sensors to predict traffic, to suggest a reroute, and to save you actual time and fuel. That's a level of hyper-efficiency that a human just can't replicate.
And that massive scale leads right into the second big benefit, which is 24/7 availability. Human services, they have business hours, people get tired. AI is just always on, ready to go.
hmm And we see tremendous value in how AI handles the repetitive stuff. It frees up human expertise. So for a financial analyst, the AI can do all the initial data scrubbing, the boring regulatory checks, and that lets the human focus on complex strategy and the nuanced interpretations. It's a massive productivity boost.
Plus the personalization. It's gone so far beyond just targeted ads. We're talking about systems that can tailor an educational path for a student, or fine-tune a robot on a manufacturing line, or even just adjust a smart speaker's response because it recognizes your voice.
And maybe the most compelling argument for relying on it is in advanced data analysis, especially in fields like health and scientific research. And AI can ingest and interpret petabytes of data genomic sequences, clinical trial results, to find patterns that would be totally invisible to a human researcher. Just accelerates discovery so dramatically.
That is a very compelling case for relying on AI as, a critical tool. But if we pivot to the other side, the case against blind trust is, well, it's equally powerful. The risks really demand some necessary skepticism, and they often mirror the very things that make it efficient.
That's a crucial point. The same complexity that makes it powerful is also its greatest vulnerability. And the number one risk, the one that really permeates all areas, is algorithmic bias.
Mm.
This is where an AI learns correlation, but not causality.
So it's not the AI deciding to be unfair on its own. It's the training data reflecting kind of historical unfairness.
Yeah.
Could you just remind us of the specific mechanism there?
Certainly. Think about that hiring algorithm example from the sources. If the system is trained only on decades of resumes from successful managers who just happen to be predominantly male, the AI learns that certain, male-coded language correlates with success. So when a woman applies using different phrasing, the AI filters her out. Not because of gender, but because it perfectly mirrored the historical bias in his training data. The AI is a perfect, non-judgmental mirror.
Right. And that inability to judge or sort of correct its own data leads straight to the accuracy problem. We hear about hallucinations all the time now, especially with generative AI. I always thought an error was just a simple mistake.
Mm.
Is a hallucination different?
It is fundamentally different, yes.
Mm.
An error is a miscalculation. A hallucination is when the AI generates completely fabricated information, but it presents it with the total confidence of a fact. It doesn't know what it doesn't know, so it just fills in the gaps, convincingly, sometimes even citing sources that don't exist.
And often we have no idea how it even got to that confident yet totally false conclusion. And that's the classic black box problem, right? That lack of transparency.
And this lack of transparency is particularly worrying because it completely undermines accountability. If a high-stakes decision is made, let's say denying someone a loan, and the system can't give you clear, traceable reasons for that denial, the person has no recourse.
Nothing they can do.
Nothing. The system lacks accountability because it lacks explainability.
We also have to talk about the engine that runs all of this. Data collection. Privacy erosion is a constant, almost unavoidable risk. Every smart device, every algorithm is feeding this massive, growing profile of you.
And those profiles create more and more points of failure, which leads to security vulnerabilities. As our critical infrastructure power grids, financial systems relies more on these complex AI systems, they just become exponentially more attractive targets for bad actors.
And finally, there's the critical risk of over-reliance. If we just cede our judgment entirely to the machine, our own critical thinking skills start to degrade. We just accept the AI's answer without verifying it. And when the AI inevitably makes a mistake, which all software does, our ability to respond is weakened, and that could lead to some pretty catastrophic outcomes.
So we're stuck, right? We have efficiency and speed on one side and then biased black boxes and over-reliance on the other.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the level of trust we should have isn't absolute. It's not a simple yes or no for all of AI. The level of trust fundamentally changes based on specific factors. And this is the nuance that really improves your fluency in the debate.
We identified 3 critical factors from the sources that determine the right level of reliance. The first one is task criticality. We have to ask, what are the consequences if the AI gets it wrong?
Right. So a low-stakes, high-trust scenario might be an AI suggesting a 5-song playlist for your workout. If it gets it wrong, so what? Low criticality.
But you can flip that completely to a high criticality, low trust scenario. Imagine an AI advising a surgeon during a complex operation or diagnosing a rare cancer. The stakes are literally life and death. That demands profound human skepticism, validation, layers of verification. The potential cost of failure dictates how much we can trust it.
Okay, so factor 2 is transparency. This hits the black box problem head on. Can you actually understand the rules of the system?
Exactly. We can trust rules-based systems far more easily. So a high-trust scenario would be a simple fraud detection system. It flags a transaction based on clear rules. If the purchase is over $5,000 and it's in a foreign country and it's outside your normal spending, flag it. The rules are known, the trust is high.
But the low trust scenario is that complex, probabilistic, model-like, a huge algorithmic trading system making split-second decisions based on thousands of inputs. If you can't interrogate its logic, you can't even reverse engineer why it did what it did, it warrants far less trust. The opacity is the risk.
And finally, there's the level of human oversight. This one determines who holds the ultimate ethical and operational responsibility.
In a high-trust scenario, the AI is just a tool, like a co-pilot. Think of a doctor using an AI to analyze an X-ray. The AI might provide an insight, highlight something subtle, but the doctor is the final authority. They sign off on the diagnosis, they hold the responsibility. The AI is just augmenting their capability.
Conversely, a low-trust scenario is full automation. A fully autonomous vehicle in a complex city. There's no direct human intervention in a crisis moment. The AI is the absolute authority. That shift just fundamentally increases the risk, and therefore it reduces our justifiable trust. We have to always ask where the final buck stops.
So let's apply these 3 factors, criticality, transparency, and oversight, to those key areas of daily life. Let's summarize the debates that really define the trust calculation in each one.
Okay, let's start with the area that touches the most people. social media, and news. This generally falls into a low trust category because you've got this dual risk of low transparency and potentially very high societal impact.
Right. The primary debate here is about filter doubles. The AI is just optimizing for engagement, for time on site, which means it naturally reinforces your existing views. It creates these sort of self-affirming information environments. The goal is engagement, not truth.
And that environment is just fertile ground for misinformation and deepfakes. AI can generate such convincing fabricated content that we now have a severe verification problem. We can no longer trust what we see or hear alone. And the speed these algorithms spread this stuff far outpaces any ability to fact check.
Okay, next up, finance and shopping. This area presents a really clear duality. On the benefit side, AI is exceptionally good at high-volume data comparison, so it's great for automated fraud detection, protecting millions of consumers instantly.
But the risks mount really fast in more complex financial applications. We have to think about algorithmic trading, where AIs execute trades faster than any human can comprehend. A tiny error, a feedback loop, it can cascade instantly and destabilize entire markets with almost zero transparency into why it happened.
And the common consumer concern here is dynamic pricing. It's not just about one price hike anymore. The AI is using real-time data on your location, your device, your browsing history to determine your individual willingness to pay, and it's constantly adjusting the price just for you, which raises fundamental fairness questions. Is everyone getting the same opportunity?
Moving on to healthcare and wellness. Here, the trust level depends so heavily on that criticality factor. The benefits of passive monitoring are massive, using wearables or symptom checkers for low criticality data. These tools track sleep, steps, general trends. It's useful data, but if it fails, the consequences are pretty manageable.
However, when you move to the high-stakes applications, drug discovery, high-level diagnostics, the criticality just skyrockets. AI can drastically accelerate identifying promising drug compounds, sure, but the process still requires stringent, time-consuming human validation and clinical trials. Because the stakes are life and death. AI speeds up the front end, but it can't replace that final human authority on patient outcomes.
And lastly, home and transportation. In the home, we have these ubiquitous devices, smart speakers, robot vacuums. These are generally high-trust, convenience-focused tasks. But the trade-off is often that privacy erosion that comes with always-on listening devices that are profiling the minute-to-minute habits of a household.
Conversely, transportation moves so quickly into that high-risk, low-trust category with advanced driving assistance and eventually fully autonomous vehicles. The system has to make real-time, probabilistic calculations. Should I swerve? How does ice on the road affect braking in environments where a high criticality failure is possible with no human recourse?
And those are the applications where accountability becomes absolutely paramount.
Okay, let's tie this all together. We promised improved fluency, so let's summarize the essential vocabulary you need to discuss this topic, linking the terms back to what we've just covered.
We've used them throughout, but internalizing them is critical. When you're discussing fairness, you have to use the term algorithmic bias. And remember, the fault is with the historical prejudices inside the training data, not necessarily the algorithm itself.
And when you discuss governance, you need to bring up the need for an ethical framework for how AI is deployed, one that ensures accountability. Who is responsible when the fully automated system fails? Because it will.
When you describe how it works, use terms like automation and reliance to quantify how much a human is depending on it. And, maybe most importantly, to maintain a rational skepticism, we need to remember the necessary human actions.
Yeah.
Always verify the output and exercise rational skepticism toward any answer presented without clear reasoning.
That's a great toolkit. So this brings us to the core synthesis. Based on this analysis of criticality, transparency, and oversight, how should we structure our stance?
The thesis that comes out of the structured summary is pretty clear. We can trust AI as a powerful tool, but we should never grant it the status of an authority.
And what are the supporting arguments that really solidify that structure?
First, AI excels at efficiency in handling those repetitive low-stakes tasks, where speed is the main verifiable goal. Second, the true value you get from it changes dramatically based on the level of human oversight. The AI must assist, not dictate. It's about augmentation, not replacement.
And the necessary caveat, the constant drumbeat of caution.
We have to remain highly skeptical of any black box system that's dealing with high criticality tasks, especially those handling sensitive personal data. So, transparency, accountability, and avoiding bias must be the main focus of our scrutiny, no matter how convenient it seems.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, in practice? It means moving beyond simplistic arguments. When you talk about AI, use balanced phrases that reflect the duality we've discussed. You could try saying, it's a double-edged sword when you consider the efficiency gain in logistics versus the privacy risks of constant tracking. Or, there's no easy answer, but on balance, for low-stakes tasks like generating initial ideas, the efficiency benefits clearly outweigh the concerns, provided we verify the facts.
And if we've established that AI is a powerful tool designed for optimization and speed, then we have to ask the follow-up question that governs its ethical deployment. Where specifically should we never allow AI to make autonomous decisions without the final, mandatory sign-off of a human authority? Keep that line in the sand clear as you encounter these systems throughout your day.